St. John's wort has been shown to be as effective as some prescription antidepressant drugs. It's been used to treat a variety of internal and external illnesses dating back to the ancient Greeks. St. John's wort supplements are derived from the flowering tops of this perennial shrub. The name St. John's wort comes from its traditional flowering and harvesting day on St. John's Day, which is the 24th of June. St. John's wort has remained a popular treatment for anxiety, depression, cuts and burns, and recent research shows that it's effective in treating cancer, inflammation and bacterial and viral diseases. For the brain, for cognitive health, St. John's wort is as effective at relieving mild to moderate depression as the most commonly prescribed SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants. St. John's wort inhibits the uptake of serotonin, dopamine, GABA, glutamate and norepinephrine. Inhibiting the neuronal uptake of these neurotransmitters can have a profound effect on depression and mood. St. John's wort extract decreases oxidative stress. It prevents neurotoxicity and brain inflammation. It helps to maintain mitochondrial electrical potential in the brain cells, and it protects against cell death that's caused by amyloid peptides that form plaques in the brain of those suffering from Alzheimer's disease. St. John's wort extract helps to alleviate the symptoms of anxiety and stress by influencing neurotransmitters, and St. John's wort moderates the genes that control the function of your hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is directly related to the symptoms of anxiety and depression. St. John's wort is native to Europe, but it can be found growing wild throughout Asia, Africa, North and Southern America, and even Australia. Greek physician Galen and Dioscorides prescribed St. John's wort as a diuretic for healing wounds and for treating menstrual disorders. In the Middle Ages, it was used as a talisman for warding off evil spirits. It first crossed the radar of modern herbalists and naturopaths in 1997. A study was published in the British Medical Journal called St. John's wort for Depression, an overview and a meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials, and it pushed it to the superstar herbal antidepressant status. This meta-analysis of 23 previously published studies on St. John's wort was drawn from foreign medical journals. The analysis showed that overall St. John's wort was a significant superior option to a placebo, and it was as effective as pharmaceutical antidepressants. The British Medical Journal published another study in 2005 showing that St. John's wort was equally effective in treating depression and was better tolerated than the widely prescribed antidepressant paroxetine, or Paxil. The two major active constituents of St. John's wort were the hypericin and the hyperforin. The plant contains a total of 7 groups of medically active compounds. Researchers have extensively documented St. John's wort as having antidepressant, antiviral, antioxidant, anti-cancer and antibacterial effects. The most recent clinical study shows that the hyperforin is the constituent in the St. John's wort that has the most antidepressant action. If you had limited success using St. John's wort for depression and anxiety, your choice of supplement may be the problem. Hyperforin is the major antidepressive constituent of the St. John's wort. It inhibits the uptake of serotonin, dopamine and norepinephrine in the brain. By making more of each of these neurotransmitters available in the brain, the mood is elevated and depressive symptoms decline. Clinical trials also demonstrate that the level of antidepressant effect of St. John's wort is entirely dependent on the concentration of the hyperforin. A study in Berlin compared the efficacy of using St. John's wort extract to paroxetine in treating moderate to severe depression. In this multi-center randomized double-blind study, 130 patients who received 900 or 1,800 milligrams per day of St. John's wort or 40 milligrams of paroxetine were included. The study showed that St. John's wort and the paroxetine were equally effective in preventing relapse and continuation of treatment after recovery from moderate to severe depression, and that the St. John's wort was an important alternative treatment option for long-term prevention of depression. St. John's wort is licensed in Germany to treat anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders, but scientists and researchers are still working out which one of the plant constituents provides the anxiolytic effects. The anti-anxiety effects of the St. John's wort have been attributed to the binding affinity of at least 10 different extracts of the herb, including the hypericin, flavonoids, xanthones, bioflavonoids for ATP production, GABA and glutamine receptors, as well as the inhibition of monoamine oxidase A and B activity, and synaptic uptake of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. As we know for sure at this point, St. John's wort works to help alleviate some forms of anxiety. One German study ran a multi-centre, randomised, placebo-controlled 6-week trial comparing the efficacy of St. John's wort extract to a placebo in 151 outpatients who were suffering from anxiety. The data from the trial showed that St. John's wort extract has superior effectiveness in controlling anxiety symptoms, and the tolerability of the extract was excellent. Depression can be experienced at any age. Imbalances in neurotransmitters, including serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, can affect everything from cognition to mood. Memory, recall, reaction time, and mood diminishes. Neuroreceptors decline. Neurotransmitter levels decline. Anxiety, panic attacks, stress, and insomnia rise. Neuroplasticity declines, degrading long-term memory potentiation. Under conditions of depression and chronic stress, your brain loses the capacity to transmit signals between neurons efficiently. Memory, cognition, and decision-making all suffer as a result. St. John's wort inhibits the synaptic uptake in your brain of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine with approximately equal affinity. Research shows that St. John's wort also has an affinity for adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, GABA and glutamate receptors. And in the lab, scientists have discovered it downregulates beta-adrenergic receptors and it upregulates serotonin receptors. Adrenergic receptors are a class of G-protein receptors that are targets of the catecholamines like norepinephrine and epinephrine, or adrenaline. This upregulation and downregulation of the neurotransmitter concentrations are in areas of the brain that are implicated in depression. And finally, neuroendocrine studies show that St. John's wort is involved in the regulation of genes that control the hypothalamic pituitary axis, and this is also contributing to the antidepressant action of the herb. Much of the therapeutic activity is attributed to St. John's wort's active phytochemical ingredients, hypericin, hyperforin, and several of the flavonoids. This novel mechanism of action is unlike any other single pharmaceutical antidepressant or nootropic, and it underlies St. John's wort's profound effect on depression. St. John's wort also has strong antibacterial and antiviral properties, and it inhibits tumour cell growth. Research shows that St. John's wort extract decreases oxidative stress and it prevents neurotoxicity and inflammation, and it may be an effective treatment for oxidative stress-related neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. It shows promise as a strong anti-inflammatory agent. Thousands of years of clinical use of St. John's wort shows that it works as a wound healing agent also, and St. John's wort even helps to reduce the effects of opium dependence by reducing withdrawal symptoms. It also helps to repair nerve damage after a stroke. St. John's wort does not produce the same side effects as pharmaceutical antidepressants. Sex drive is not affected. No withdrawal symptoms happen when you stop taking St. John's wort. Users of St. John's wort extract say it often works sooner than expected and it gets better over time. The extract helps to provide better focus and fewer obsessive-compulsive disorder habits. users report an end to procrastination, less irritation, and a better mood. St. John's wort extract takes the edge off situations that would normally stress you. Feelings of anxiety are less or non-existent. Women going through the menopause report feeling more emotionally stable when using St. John's wort extract. Mood swings are no longer an issue. If you deal with PTSD, you may find that St. John's wort extract will put a stop to the rage, and long-term depression could also become a distant memory. If you're sure that your depression is caused by a serotonin imbalance, you should feel the mood-lifting effects of St. John's wort. But neuroscience is a complicated subject, and everyone's body and wiring is different, so St. John's wort does not work for all types of depression or anxiety. If your depression is caused by hormonal imbalance, a depleted microbiome, heavy metal toxicity, an issue with dopamine levels, excess inflammation, lack of brain-derived nootropic factor and nerve growth factor, or other neuroreceptor issues, you may not experience the full benefits of St. John's wort. You should never combine St. John's wort with prescription antidepressants. Most clinical studies using St. John's wort for depression have been conducted in Europe, and they were targeted in cases of mild to moderate depression. Then there came a study done in Vanderbilt University in the US in 2001, and it made headline news and created a ton of controversy. The study discredited the herb for use in treatment of patients with major depression. This double-blind, placebo-controlled trial worked with 200 adult outpatients, mean age of 42 years, who were diagnosed with major depression. The patients were randomly assigned to receive 900 mg per day of St. John's wort extract or placebo for 4 weeks, and if they didn't respond, the dose was raised to 1200 mg per day or placebo for another 8 weeks. The researchers concluded that there was no significant change in the patient's depression score, and that St. John's wort was no better than a placebo for treating major depression. However, this study was funded by Pfizer, the pharmaceutical manufacturer of Zoloft, the leading synthetic antidepressant medication. Therefore, there was a major conflict of interest in this study. In 2015, the FDA in the US pushed Pfizer to modify the safety warning for Zoloft, linking Zoloft to causing heart defects in newborns. This in response to hundreds of lawsuits by women who say they weren't adequately warned that Zoloft could cause the defects in their newborns. Zoloft sales for Pfizer made the company $3.3 billion in 2005. It seems logical that there was no way that Pfizer was going to have a clinical trial show that St. John's wort was as good or better than Zoloft. It's also interesting that the sales of St. John's wort annually in the US reached a peak of 315 million in 1998, but had declined to about 60 million by 2006. Bad press strongly affected the sales of this natural antidepressant, and yet the sales of pharmaceutical antidepressants continue to rise. A study in New York compared St. John's wort to the SSRI sertraline or Zoloft in the treatment of depression. In this double-blind randomized study, 30 outpatients, mean age of 45, with mild to moderate depression, received 600 mg per day of a standardized St. John's wort extract or 50 mg per day of sertraline for 1 week. This was followed by 900 mg per day of St. John's wort extract or 75 mg per day of sertraline for another 6 weeks. The severity of depression symptoms was significantly reduced in both treatment groups. Clinical response was noted in 47% of patients receiving the St. John's wort and 40% in the patients receiving the sertraline. The researchers concluded that St. John's wort was at least as effective as the sertraline in the treatment of mild to moderate depression. A study done in Munich investigated whether the extracts of St. John's wort are more effective than a placebo in treating major depression, and as effective with fewer side effects than standard antidepressant drugs. The study was a review of 29 trials, including a total of 5,489 patients. It included 18 comparisons with placebo and 17 comparisons with synthetic standard antidepressants. The standard antidepressant included the tricyclic and SSRI antidepressants. The authors' conclusions reported that the available evidence suggests that St. John's wort extracts were superior to placebo in patients with major depression. St. John's wort extracts were similarly effective as standard antidepressants, and St. John's wort extracts had fewer side effects than standard antidepressants. A study done at the Dean Foundation for Health, Research and Education analysed 12 patients who had been diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. The patients received 450 milligrams of St. John's wort twice a day for 12 weeks. The study included weekly evaluations using 3 different obsessive-compulsive scales and a monthly evaluation with the Hamilton Rating Scale for depression. Changes in obsessive-compulsive behaviour occurred within 1 week of supplementing with St. John's wort, and the changes continued to improve over the course of the 12-week trial. 5 of the 12 patients were rated much or very much improved. 6 patients were rated minimally improved, and 1 person had no change in symptoms. The researchers concluded that St. John's wort could be an effective treatment for obsessive-compulsive disorder. St. John's wort comes in capsule, tablet, powder and liquid form. Most St. John's wort supplements are standardized to contain 3% hypericin content. The most recent clinical studies, however, show that hyperforin is the constituent in St. John's wort that has the most antidepressant action. Some recommended doses for St. John's wort. For anxiety, 900 milligrams twice per day. For mild to moderate depression, 300 milligrams 3 times per day. For severe depression, 900 to 1,800 milligrams per day. For obsessive-compulsive disorder, 450 to 1,800 milligrams daily for 12 weeks. For PMS, 300 to 900 milligrams daily for 2 menstrual cycles. For irritable bowel syndrome, 450 milligrams twice per day for 12 weeks. Side effects with St. John's wort are generally mild, and they can include stomach upset, hives, skin rash, fatigue, restlessness, headache, dry mouth, dizziness, and confusion. Research shows that the hyperforin in the St. John's wort is a potent, non-competitive inhibitor of the cytochrome P450 enzyme activity, and this could interfere with the metabolism of other drugs. Therefore, you should always check with a qualified medical doctor if you're on any prescription medicine. A researcher working in Pfizer's Central Research Division said that these in vitro data indicate that the St. John's wort preparations contain constituents that could potentially inhibit the activities of the major human drug metabolizing enzymes, and suggests that these preparations should be examined for potential pharmacokinetic drug interactions. As a user, this means that the St. John's wort can either potentiate the effectiveness of some medications that you take, or it could prevent you from experiencing the benefits of these supplements. St. John's wort can interfere with getting pregnant, or it can make you infertile or worse. It can make ADHD symptoms worse, particularly if you're already taking Ritalin. St. John's wort may increase the risk of psychosis in those with schizophrenia, and it may contribute to dementia in those with Alzheimer's. It can interact with medications that are used during surgery, so if you're anticipating surgery, you should avoid St. John's wort. Don't take St. John's wort if you have bipolar disorder. Some St. John's wort extracts can make your skin and eyes overly sensitive to sunlight. You should avoid sun lamps, tanning boots and tanning beds while using St. John's wort products containing hypericin. Cytochrome P450 is a liver enzyme whose job it is to oxidize small foreign organic molecules and toxins so they can be removed from the body. Some substances, including St. John's wort and grapefruit juice, affect the enzyme CYP3A4, and this can amplify or weaken the action of those drugs or supplements that you're taking. St. John's wort interacts with tricyclic, SSRI and MAOI antidepressants. Taking St. John's wort with these medications increases their action, and it could lead to a potential serotonin syndrome, which can be fatal. So do not take St. John's wort with antidepressants such as tricyclic, SSRIs or MAOIs. St. John's wort can reduce levels of antihistamine in your body. It can increase the risk of bleeding when combined with Plavix and birth control pills. Don't use St. John's wort with warfarin, as it can also reduce its effectiveness. Drugs that suppress the immune system can lose their effectiveness with St. John's wort. It should not be used with drugs that treat HIV or AIDS. St. John's wort can increase the sedative effect of barbiturates, benzodiazepines like Valium, and triptans that are used to treat migraines. St. John's wort interacts with antifungal drugs, statins, calcium channel blockers, and any other medication that's broken down by the liver. St. John's wort is especially helpful for those suffering from depression, anxiety, and stress. Studies show it may help to stop and reverse the devastating effects that stress has on your body. St. John's wort mixes well with SAMe. You can safely take up to 1,800 milligrams of St. John's wort daily if needed. Half the dose first thing in the morning and the other half early in the afternoon. St. John's wort can cause insomnia, so avoid taking it too late in the day.